Good morning, folks. Mary Robinson. She was our former president. She's a woke, cultural Marxist senior citizen enjoying all kinds of state benefits. She was the president of Ireland, and there was a COP28 summit, and they're planning to have it next year in Eastern Europe. And the plan was that hold it in Kiev, in a liberated Ukraine, with President Zelensky being the anointed one, and he'd march into the stage and they'd be all clapping. It'd be like the Oscars. It didn't work out for them because when they're tested in the real world, they fail miserably. Their old nonsense about climate change and other crap is not getting any traction anywhere. Mary Davis was a leader of the Special Olympics thing here in Ireland, and she had the police running around the whole country collecting money and all of that, and maybe it did some good. But she also ran for president and she came last, and she said herself that in the paper that you always go where the money is. There's no point licking up to some fella that has no money. You have to make sure that they have money. So they all know you have to try and get to the source of power, and this is why the people vote for politicians that lend themselves to the like of Mary Robinson, and they do it unwittingly. But we're trying to wake them up to realise that is a highly dangerous thing to do. That is like turkeys voting for Christmas. Now the thing is covered well on the internet, and this fella Al Jabber, whatever, he's an Arabian prince and a whole lot of things, and he's a sultan as well, and he's in charge of the whole oil and all out there. And she began to lecture to him, when are you going to phase out fossil fuel? When are you going to phase out fossil fuel? And he said, we have to. I'm an engineer. What are you? She's nothing. She has no climate science. She has no engineering background. She doesn't have a clue what she's talking about. I mean, I made the point. She says, oh, renewables, we'll replace it with renewables. If you took every field in Ireland and every field in Great Britain and you installed a big, huge 4 megawatt wind turbine in it and connected them all to the grid, and there comes a calm day, you have no power. If the wind blows strong, you can't use the power because you must have 36 to 40% of the grid fueled by fossil fuel or nuclear power. You can't use it. In the case of solar power, it's DC current. You can't use it either, except that you have already the grid up and running with fossil fuel or nuclear power. She's totally and utterly ignorant about that simple fact. So she wants to pull away the fuel. She's living in a house in Dublin with full gas fires, heating. She can go into her mobile and put on the heat at home. And when they went to fly out from parts of Europe, you'll get it there on the internet, a lot of these people are flying in private jets, no counting of their carbon footprint. Some of them going out from Germany and those kind of countries found there was a huge snowstorm and they couldn't get off the ground. They had to get tractors to try and clear the runway to get the jets off, and there was an apology at the COP summit, 28 summit, that they were late because they were snowbound. I mean, the pure irony of them being going out to prevent global warming and they're stuck in the snow. I mean, what is wrong? How can people not see that? How can people who can't see that and that it resonates with them, how can they understand any art or any bit of literature or any film? They must be densos of the highest order. Now, your man, there were several Arab people who got up there, and Al Juber, and he has a lot of oil and all that, and he says you can't run out fossil fuel. If you look at the sober facts of it and look at the engineering, and he says, I'm an engineer, you can't roll it out. You can't just do that. But there was another hidden thing in Mary Robinson's approach. You see, what they want to tax the use of fuels in Europe and the United States heavily with carbon taxes. It amounted to 70 billion 2 years ago, euros. And they want to bring that money over to Africa, and they want to tell them, you do not develop your coal, oil and gas. You live with your camels, with your burning cow dung, and we'll give you money, we'll give you cash. And see, cash is their only thing they understand. When they wanted to penalise Putin, they imposed sanctions, economic sanctions. You see, they don't understand anything practical. So we'll give you cash and we'll pull the money out of my farm in Ireland. We'll pull the money out of gypsum industries. We'll tax everything. We'll tax the making of blocks, the making of cement, and we'll give it over to these African countries. And then we're in control. That's Mary Robinson's agenda. And he told her, you're racist. Why should the people of Africa curtail their economic activity and jettison their future happiness and growth based on the European and American model just because you don't like it? Why should the developed world be allowed to use away at fossil fuel and we cut it in Africa? And implicit in her cry was that they'd supply it to Europe because Germany is whinging that they haven't enough oil. Biden is supplying them with oil and gas, and Germany industry is collapsing as they realise they haven't the fuel to run their chemical and their other engineering and all of that thing. They're just dying out. The car manufacturers are leaving there, and the chemical manufacturers are leaving for China and other places. So this is implicit. We're begging for fuel. China has Germany has 62 megawatts of wind. It's useless today. They can't, if it was working, why isn't their industry thriving? It doesn't work, and that's the hard fact. And he said this to them. You want us to stop supplying oil to Africa, and that's what they're at. They're trying to say to the Arab oil producers and the other oil producers, give the oil to Europe, give the oil to the United States, give it to Canada, and give it to all over Europe, but don't give it to them Africans, and don't give it to the Indians. Deprive them of it. We'll give them a few pounds in compensation, and we'll cream off a nice little bit of it for ourselves. The head of the International Climate Change Committee, way back years ago, Pashur was his name. He was a railway engineer. His specialist was the gradient of rails, how sharp you can have turns of railway lines and all that. That was the education he had. He had to go eventually. There is no science behind any of this. Al Gore predicted that the ice caps in the poles would be gone by now, that they are better than ever. And even if there was something to it, even if the extra CO2 in the air is real, I see the trees growing even faster. The plantation pull out the CO2 from the air and fix it in the ground. But even if there was something to this, they're not going to force the Chinese, the Russians, or the Indians, or many parts of Africa to stop industrializing, to stop emulating what the Europeans did. Don't forget, Macron and his French government were pilfering the uranium, the gold, and the timber out of sub-Saharan Africa. And recently, and I think it's with the help of the Chinese and the Russians, they kicked them out and ran them out of town and told them, you're not getting in. The Americans are determined to kill the leaders of these coups, and they haven't succeeded yet. And they need to be very careful, and they need to be well armed and watch what they're doing, but they haven't succeeded yet. And it could be that some of these African leaders and your man in Burkina Faso and these places know a bit more than their forebears who really ran these places into the ground, like Mugabe and all of these. But the Europeans are learning that the day of getting handy goodies out of Africa is going, and they'll have to pay for it. They're paying 11 euros a kilo for yellow cake uranium, which was trading on the open market as 234 euros. They could buy it and bring it to Paris and sell it to other countries and make a profit of 223 euros a kilo. What a markup! What a markup. And they have all the mahogany and all the great wood, and all the public buildings and private buildings are all the best of good mahogany taken for a song and taken for a song. And Mary Robinson is complicit in this. She wants the image of Manona Afric, the African women with the pail of water on their head and going round minding goats and coughing and plottering with our camel dung trying to light the fire, when they want the cylinder of gas, they want a bit of diesel, they want a bit of the bit of petrol, and they want the coal, oil and gas, the same as everyone else. And this is what these people told them, the Arabs: you're racist. You are racist. You are trying to give a lesser standard to the African people than you are to your own. That's the reality of Mary Robinson. She's a fraud, and I want to meet her and I want to discuss this, but of course that's not going to happen. The only thing we can do is turn the people against the politicians that are doing this, and teach them as well. Unfortunately, Sinn Féin is worse. Sinn Féin are more green than the Green Party. That is the sad reality. If they deny that, I want to see it in the manifesto, and I want Sinn Féin to come and debate this with me and explain to me why this is the case. The whole world is deluded into thinking that there can be a shift away to wind and solar, which is the only two renewables there is really, and get rid of oil, coal and gas. They cannot do it. It's not possible to do it. And the whole thing with their electric cars and all is falling round their ears. That's the harsh reality, folks. Give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. We'll see you back for something else soon. Thank you.